Welcome back, students. We're going to continue talking about the axis of symmetry and graphing quadratic functions. We're going to look at equations that are written in factored form now. So these factors, such as x minus p and x minus q, can be really useful for finding x-intercepts. Now, something we know about quadratics is that they are symmetrical. So if I've got two different points that are on the same line, I know that the axis of symmetry must be right in the middle of them. Or, to put that algebraically, p plus q over 2. So adding those two roots together and then dividing by 2. So that'll help us to find exactly where the axis of symmetry is. And then to find where the vertex is, we can simply input that value for p plus q over 2, and that'll help us to find where the vertex is. So let's try this out. We want to graph this function, label the x-intercepts, the vertex, and the axis of symmetry. So let's first find where these factors have a 0. So I want to know what value of x causes x plus 3 to be a 0. Well, that would be at -3. So -3 is an x-intercept, because if I have -3, it's -3 plus 3 is 0. Everything times by a 0 is just 0. So we know I don't even have to evaluate anything else. I know all of that just multiplies to 0. That's why it's an x-intercept. Same thing over here. What value of x would make x minus 1 turn into a 0? Well, a positive 1. So that's going to be my other x-intercept. All right, I've now got these two x-intercepts. Right in the middle of them should be my axis of symmetry. So we now found the axis of symmetry. We found 2 points. Let's go ahead and just, for the sake of following some of their advice, let's use that equation to confirm that we did that correctly. So we'd have -3 plus a 1 divided by 2. -3 plus 1 is a -2. -2 over 2 is -1, which is exactly where we drew our line. So we found the axis of symmetry. Now we're going to use the axis of symmetry to help us find the vertex. Okay, by putting that value into our equation. So I want to know what the value of this equation is at -1. So we are going to have -2 times, not x plus 3, because we are replacing all of our x's with -1s, plus 3 times by -1 minus 1. So -2 times 2 times -2, which is going to give us 8. All right, so when x is a -1, this equation is up at 8. So I now have a vertex. I'm going to make sure to label it just like they asked. So we got the vertex, axis of symmetry, and the x-intercepts. So I've labeled those, and because I've got all of that, I can now draw my graph. All right, nice and easy when you've got the factors. So in this next one, we're going to use completing the square. Yep, just making sure I'd done everything. To find the vertex of the parabola, or the center and radius of a circle. And then we're going to graph the equation. All right, so completing the square. First thing with this one, I notice I don't have a y squared, so I'm just going to get this y over to the other side. Same with the constant number 7. I just want my x terms over here on the left, so I'm going to have negative 2x squared plus 8x is equal to a y minus 7. Now, the fact that I've got a coefficient in front of x can complicate things. So I'm going to go ahead and divide that out. And 8 divided by a negative 2 is going to give me a negative 4. All right, so now here in the parentheses, I have something that I can complete the square with. So I want to know, I know that minus 2 and minus 2 could give me the minus 4. So then I'd have a minus 2 times a minus 2 would give me a positive 4. So inside of that, I want a, oops, not a plus 8. I'm thinking one step ahead. So I just wanted a plus 4. So this I can easily take the square of. Now I've added value over here, but I didn't just add a 4. Notice, because I added it inside of these parentheses. So negative 2 times by a negative 4. What I've actually done is added a negative 8 on this side. So I need to make sure that I do the same thing over there and add in that negative 8. Okay, so I now got negative 2 times x minus 2. Remember, we were saying those minus 2's. Minus 2x gives us negative 4x. Negative 2 times negative 2 would give us the plus 4. So that's just our squared value. It's going to be equal to y minus 15. Now let's get our y value alone. X minus 2 squared plus 15 is equal to y. All right, now I've got an equation that I can fairly easily graph. So I'm going to use this graph right over here. Let's create some axes for me. Now, because I need to go as high as 15, I'm going to go ahead and count by threes. So we'll do 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 right there. I think we'll be fine to just be counting by ones on the x-axis. Okay, now remember, this gives us our shifts. I know that because of that minus 2, we go 2 to the right and up 15, and that's where the vertex would be. Now I can use some more points to just find out where I can add in some more. But I do know that my axis of symmetry is going to be right there. So let's go ahead and just plug in some additional numbers. 1 would be a great easy number to use. So let's do a negative 2 times 1 minus 2. Oops. I ended those parentheses too soon. So 1 squared plus 15 is equal to a y. So that's going to be 1 minus 2, negative 1 squared. It's just 1. Negative 2. So that'll be a 13. So when x is a 1, y is at 13. So we'll have a point right about there, which means we'll also have a point right about there. Let's go ahead and do it for a 0. So when x is a 0, 0 minus negative 2, it's going to be negative 2 squared is 4, times negative 2 is negative 8, plus a 15, it's going to be 7. So at 0, we're at 7, which means at 4, we're going to be at 7. And we can see how that's helping to form our equation. Okay, fantastic. Let's go ahead and move on to this next one. Now here I do have a y squared. So what we're going to do is generate two separate completing the square problems. First, with my x's, so an x squared minus 2x. And then with my y's, so a y squared plus a 6y. And then we had the minus 6. I'm actually going to move that to the other side. All right, so for this first one with x squared minus 2x, so a minus 1x would give me negative 2x. So if we're dealing with a minus 1, negative 1 squared would be a plus 1. Okay, so so keep that in mind. Now plus y squared plus 6y. So to get a 6y, that's a 3y plus a 3y. And then 3 squared is going to be 9. Let's actually end that this way. So I need to make sure that these numbers that I've added here on the left get represented on the right as well. So I'm going to need to have my 6, but also the plus 1 and the plus 9. All right, so my x's, this will turn into x minus 1 squared. For my y's, y plus 3 squared is equal to 16. All right, so these give us wonderful information on the transformations that were happening. So the center of my circle is moved 1 to the right and down 3 places. So there's going to be the center of my circle. My radius, 16. So this is the radius squared. So the actual radius is just 4. So I'm going to be 4 over from there. Let's see, 4 over from there. 4 over from there. And 4, oops, that point got a little bit off. And I can use those as a guide to help me draw the circle. All right. Hope this helps. Good luck on your practice.